Alma washed the dishes slowly, listening to the argument in the next room. It was about money again. Her father's investments, the unexplained shortages, the lies that were always discovered. Her mother's voice was a sharp, rising blade. Her father's was a low, defensive rumble. Alma dried the last plate and went back out. The sun felt like a relief. "Jude," Mum says, "come in." "5 minutes, Al," he said, dribbling the ball with his bare feet. Now she's angry. At Dad, not at us. "Jude," their mother's voice called from the window, final and furious. He sighed, gave the ball a last, powerful kick, and followed Alma inside. The sour mood filled the small house. Their father, Charles, was in his armchair, staring at a newspaper without seeing it. Their mother, Gertrude, stood between the sitting room and kitchen, her arms folded so tightly her knuckles were white. "You think money grows on the Msufi tree," she was saying, her voice trembling. "You think I enjoy begging the butcher for credit. That boy needs school shoes, and you come home with air." "It was a sure thing, Gertie," her father mumbled. "The man had a tip. How was I to know?" "You never know. You only take." How many times do I have to call you?" Her mother, on the other hand, was having none of it. She couldn't stand for such blatant disrespect. He grabbed Jude by the collar and landed a hot slap across Jude's face that was sure to leave a mark. Her brother had let out a whimper and tried to protect his head from the next blow. Big mistake. He had accidentally knocked his mother's chin, and that was enough to break all hell loose. "So you think you can fight back now, huh? You are a full-grown man with chest hairs." And then it was all too much. "Don't take your frustrations out on him, Gertrude," her father was saying from the sitting room, and then, like a scene from hell, her mother picked the rolling pin she had been using and landed it at the back of Jude's head. And then he was falling backwards, and her mother was screaming, and her father was running, and she desperately closed her eyes, willing the nightmare away. But when she opened them, her brother was lying motionless on the floor. It was all chaos afterwards as she flew to the ground and tried to shoot his brother awake. The hand she had lifted to her cheeks fell limply on the floor as she abandoned it for her brother's mouth, trying to blow air into it like she'd seen in a movie. Her mother was pulling her hair and sobbing, while her dad just stood there, eyes glazed. She had screamed at them to take him to a hospital, but her dad had chalked out that he was dead. Her mother at that point was sprawled on the floor sobbing like a child. She begged for someone to stir her awake. Then something changed in her father's face. The shock receded, replaced by a cold, frantic calculation. He looked from his dead son to his weeping wife to his terrified daughter. He looked at the door, as if imagining the neighbors, the police, the shame. "Alma," he said, his voice a new harsh thing. "Go to the shed, fetch the strong rope, the thick one, now." She didn't move. Her legs were water. "Now," he roared, and the sound broke the spell of her fear. She ran, out the back door, across the dirt yard to the tin shed. Her hands fumbled with the latch. Inside, it smelled of engine oil and damp soil. The rope was on a nail, coarse and heavy. She took it and ran back, the coil heavy in her arms. In the sitting room, her father was pulling a dining chair into the center. He had opened the ceiling hatch to the roof beams. He took the rope from her, his hands steady now. He began to tie a knot, his fingers moving with a grim expertise. "What are you doing?" Alma whispered. "Making it right," he muttered. "It was an accident, a terrible accident, but they will not see it that way. They will take your mother, they will take me. Then what will become of you? This is the only way." He fashioned a noose. He looked at Alma. "Help me." "No." "Alma, do you want them to take your mother to Langata prison? Do you want to be alone? Help me hold him." Her mind broke. She moved forward, her body not her own. Her father lifted Jude's limp body. It was so heavy, so horribly floppy. Alma supported his legs, the feel of his school trousers under her fingers forever seared into her skin. Her father got the chair. He climbed, looped the rope around a beam, and put the noose over Jude's head, tightening it around his neck. She saw it then, a twitch in Jude's fingers, a slight, spasming curl. A final nerve firing, a doctor would later say. But in that moment, Alma was sure he was still in there. "He moved," she gasped. "Be quiet," her father hissed. "Hold him steady." They let him go. The body dropped, jerked, and then swung slowly, turning in a half circle. Alma looked away, bile rising in her throat. Her father got down. He righted the chair, knocked it over under Jude's feet. He looked at his work, his face pale but set. "We wait," he said. "We wait 3 hours. Then we go to Mwanga's house next door. We tell them we found him like this. He has been moody, yes, over his school marks. We tell them that." He led Gertrude, now silent and hollow-eyed, to their bedroom. He pointed Alma to her room. "Stay there. Do not make a sound." Alma sat on her bed. She did not cry. She listened to the quiet creak of the rope from the sitting room. She watched the light change on her wall. After 3 hours, her father came for her. He looked at her, his eyes hard. "Remember," he said. "We found him. He was sad. It is a tragedy." He went next door and raised the alarm. The police came. The neighbors crowded around. There were questions, but her father's story was simple, repeated with a weary grief. Her mother, catatonic, just nodded. Alma opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her throat had closed. A sympathetic female officer knelt before her. "The shock," she said to Alma's father. "It is too much for her." They believed it. Why wouldn't they? A boy troubled by school, ashamed of his family's poverty. It happened. The investigation was brief. The body was taken. The house became very, very quiet. Alma did not speak for a year. Words were stones in her throat. She moved through school like a ghost. Her parents moved around her and each other, silent shells bound together by the terrible secret. The rage was there, though. She felt it in her stomach, a hot, hard coal. But it wasn't her rage. It was her mother's rage, the one that had swung the rolling pin. It was her father's rage, the cold, selfish fury that had turned her brother into a staged suicide. She had swallowed it all, and it burned inside her, borrowed and poisonous. When her voice returned, it was flat. She spoke only when necessary. She finished school with top marks, a quiet, fierce intelligence her only weapon. The rage needed a target. First, it was her father. She saw him one evening, counting out small, pitiful coins for the milkman, his hands shaking. The borrowed rage swelled. "You did this," it screamed. "You and your lies and your rope." But she said nothing. The rage had no outlet, so it turned inward, tightening her chest, shortening her breath. She got a job as a clerk in a lawyer's office in town. The work was orderly. Facts, files, procedures, it soothed her. She saved every shilling, moving her money to a secret account. She was planning her escape, though she didn't know where to. The borrowed rage was her only companion. It found a new target when her mother tried to reconnect. Gertrude, aged and softened by guilt, would make Alma's favorite mandazi, try to talk about her day. "That case you worked on, did it end well?" she asked. Alma would look at her mother's hands, the hands that had made the mandazi, that had held the rolling pin. The borrowed rage would surge, hot and choking. "You took him from me," it would snarl. But Alma would just say, "It ended." She could not forgive. The rage was not hers to give up. It was a debt she was forced to hold. She moved into a small flat in Hurlingham. The silence there was her own, but the rage moved with her. It came out in strange ways. A matatu cut her off in traffic, and she would shake with a fury that felt ancient, disproportionate. A colleague would make a minor error, and she would have to leave the room, her hands clenched so hard her nails left marks. She was borrowing her parents' capacity for destruction, and she was terrified of it. One afternoon, 7 years after Jude's death, she was walking home from work. She passed a field where boys were playing football. The sight was a physical blow. She stopped, gripping the chain-link fence. She watched them run, shout, laugh. One boy, tall and lanky, took a powerful shot. The ball sailed into the net. He threw his hands up in triumph, and his smile in the golden evening light was Jude's smile. The borrowed rage erupted. It wasn't at the boys. It wasn't at her parents, who were now just two sad old people living in a silent house. It was at the world, at the unfairness, at the sun that still shone, at the games that still went on, at the fact that she was here, choking on a rage that was not hers, while Jude was dust. The fury was so vast it blinded her. She didn't realize she was screaming until her throat was raw. A guttural, wordless howl tore out of her, there on the sidewalk. She sank to her knees, pounding a fist on the concrete until the skin split. People stared, moved away. She didn't care. She screamed until the rage was empty. And then, for the first time, she cried. Not the silent tears of the mute year, but great, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. She cried for Jude. She cried for the sister she had been. She cried for the parents they should have had. She cried until there was nothing left. A woman selling maize from a cart nearby came over cautiously. She didn't ask what was wrong. She just put a warm, paper-wrapped ear of roasted maize in Alma's lap and a hand on her shoulder for a moment. Then she went back to her cart. Alma sat there, exhausted, hollow. The hot coal in her stomach was gone. In its place was a cold, clear emptiness. The borrowed rage had been a fire, and she had just let it burn itself out on the pavement. She stood up, her legs weak. She picked up the maize. She walked home. She did not feel light. She felt scarred and terribly tired. But she felt like herself. The rage had been a tenant, and it had finally vacated. The space it left was hers. The next Saturday, she took a bus to the cemetery on the outskirts of the city. She had not been since the burial. She found the small, plain stone, Jude, beloved son. She sat on the grass beside it. The sun was the same as it had been on that afternoon. "I'm sorry I held your legs," she said aloud, her voice quiet but steady in the quiet air. "I'm sorry I helped them. I was scared." She told him about her job, about her flat, about the boys playing football. She did not ask for forgiveness. She just talked to her brother. "I've been so angry, Jude," she said. "But it was never really my anger to carry. I'm putting it down now. It belongs to them. I'm just your sister." She placed a small, smooth stone from her pocket on top of his gravestone. Then she stood up. The borrowed rage was gone. What remained was her own grief, her own loss. They were heavy, but they were hers, and she could carry what was hers. She walked out of the cemetery and towards the bus stop. The sun was warm on her skin. It was just the sun. The world was just the world. She was just Alma. And for the first time in a very long time, that was enough.